Good evening, everyone, and happy St. Patrick's Day. Before we begin, I want to recognize Caitlin Filkins, who had a nail biter race to take Lisa Miller's seat in the select board. She eked out a strong victory. So welcome, Caitlin. Looking forward to working with you.
And congratulations to Bard for getting reelected.
Oh,
Also,
another close race. Bart, thanks for keeping the seat warm.
Thank you.
Before we begin, is there any public comment? Okay.
Yes, but I actually sent it to you as an email.
Oh,
You're welcome to say it out loud if you'd like. Just come on.
Hi, my name is Sarah Toscano. I'm actually. All right.
There's no good mic. Well, actually, we do have better mics now.
My name is Sarah Toscano. Just coming over just really to send you what I sent you so that you have an idea of what we are dealing with as far as police situation goes. It has been very troubling in Hinesburg to find out exactly who's in charge and not when into these situations where one person can start a rumor and ruin the career of another. So I really would hope you take what I've sent into consideration and possibly reconsider the not offering the job to officers to Chief Cambridge. Sorry, he's always gonna be Chief Cambridge to me. He's been there for like 10 years in Hinesburg. And I know we were sharing the police force, which is pretty much makes us the same town, but a very long drive. We would, I mean, I'm trying very hard. I've started a petition to remove the person who started the stuff. And I've tried really hard to help the situation correct itself in Hinesburg. In this situation, unfortunately, it's had a trickle down effect. So nobody is, you know, I understand if you have to wait for it to straighten out in Hinesburg first. I do understand that situation, but I really don't feel that Chief Cambridge deserves what he's gotten in this situation. He is he's the freaking Easter Bunny. Literally shows up, tried to make everybody happy all the time, even sometimes in the Easter costume. You know, this was not fair at all. So I would really hope that maybe you might consider working with the town manager or overriding the town manager and changing your mind on the former decision.
thank you. Anybody else? Okay. Josh, board, any additions, deletions, or modifications to tonight's agenda? Okay. So next, in our warrant agenda, the first item is reorganization. First is selection of chair. We'll get that taken care of because that changes how the meeting runs. Before I step down, I just want to say, I want to thank the town for their patience in dealing with me over the last year. I've had some significant personal issues going on, and I've tried to keep that separate from this. And I know I wasn't always at my best as I was dealing with that, so thank you for your patience. This is something that traditionally rotates year to year. And I've been honored to be in this position for the past year. I thank you for that. So at this time, I would entertain a motion for a nomination for a new chair.
I'll nominate Jay Furr as the new chair.
Thank you, Bard. Do we have a second?
Adam, second.
Okay, so motion's been made and seconded to make Jay our new chair. Any discussion?
Yes, and I didn't have a good excuse not to.
Okay, calling for a vote on the motion, please identify yourself and signify your vote.
Adam, aye.
Caitlin, aye.
Bard, aye. Jay abstain.
David, aye. I'm sorry about it. Congratulations, Jay.
You want to do the vice chair before we flaunt?
Sure. And you can take the seat whenever you're ready.
Okay.
So next we have nomination for vice chair.
I nominate Adam Wood as vice chair.
Thank you, Jay.
This Bard, I'll second that.
Thank you, Bard. Any further discussion?
And I'll say.
Hearing none.
I'll have a say in this, do it now.
Speech. So absent any further discussion, calling the motion to a vote, please identify yourself and signify your vote.
Adam, stand.
Caitlin, hi.
Bart, aye.
Jay, aye.
David, aye. Congratulations. You want my agenda?
I know, I've got one.
Need any notes or anything?
No, I'm good. I do need you to still, keep track.
Oh, I keep track of Amtrak. Thanks, Jay.
Caitlin, it's one of the longstanding traditions here on the select board that when training comes by, we all stop and
Observe.
I love that.
Take in the moment and say.
You never know when it's gonna happen.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of it.
Sometimes it's 11:30 when we're still here.
Okay, well, I would like to thank the select board for their trust in me, and I will try to uphold that trust. I would also like to thank Lisa Miller, who served as our vice chair, and of course, David Sander, who has done a wonderful job as our chair. I think he has done a tremendous job as being an example of what an even-handed chair should be, and never, to the best of my knowledge, ever letting somebody get his dander up. I said that to him today, and he said, I just didn't show it, but that's half the battle.
Self-regulation.
Well, thank you, Jay.
Okay, the next item on our agenda is town meeting follow-up. No, I stand corrected. It's board secretary and official newspapers. So, we do have an official board secretary position that we fill each time. Administrative assistant Lynn Carolio.
Caroleo.
Lynn, I'm so sorry. I'm going to get it right one of these years. Has been taking minutes since last summer. Her position is temporary and will finish at the end of June. Town manager Josh Arneson recommends that the board appoints her secretary for the time being. And when her employment ends, we will have to appoint a new secretary. So does anybody wish to make that motion?
Jay, I wish to appoint Lynn Caroleo as select board secretary.
Does Bart, I'll second that.
Is there any discussion? Okay, please state your name and your vote.
May I say something, just so you know, I was told by somebody who messaged me that your volume isn't working,
Well,
that nobody's volume is working.
I'm very glad to be informed of that.
Just thought you want to know before you kept going.
Let's see, Duncan.
No, it's working from my end.
Okay, maybe that person needs to turn their speaker
Yeah,
up.
I'm been able to hear it the whole time.
Anybody else having trouble hearing us who's online right now? Just raise your hand or jump.
Coming through fine.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, we have a motion made with David and seconded by Bard to appoint Lynn Caroleo as select board secretary. Please state your name and your vote.
Adam, aye.
Caitlin, I.
Bart, aye.
And Jay, aye. One more bit of administrative bureaucracy stuff we have to do is designate our official newspaper where we publish public notices that are required by law. These notices include warnings, meetings or hearing notices, and election warnings. For the past year, we have designated the following papers as official newspapers: the Burlington Free Press, the Times Inc., the Williston Observer, and 7 Days. I don't believe state law currently allows us to officially designate Front Porch Forum as an official newspaper of record, but obviously we do use it for much the same purpose.
I believe the law still says it has to be a regularly published print
Right.
publication.
So there is a motion in the memo. Would anybody like to make a motion for official newspapers?
Jay, this is Bart. I'd like to move to designate Burlington Free Press, Times Inc., Williston Observer, and 7 Days as the official newspapers of the town of Richmond. Adam, second.
Okay, we have a motion by Bart Hill, seconded by Adam Wood, to designate the Burlington Free Press, Times Inc., Williston Observer, and 7 Days as the official newspapers of Richmond. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, please state your name and your vote.
Adam, aye.
Caitlin, I.
Bart, aye.
David, I.
And Jay, aye. Okay, our next agenda item is town meeting follow-up. I'd like to say thanks to all the voters who cast their votes at town meeting, and the volunteers who made the elections possible, the candidates, the town staff, especially our outgoing town clerk, Linda Parent, and our incoming town clerk, Suzanne Parent, no relation. Thank you all for participating and doing what's necessary to keep our democracy here at the local level functioning. David?
I just want to say that in light of everything going on in the national political stage, I was very proud to be a part of a town that had a civil, productive town meeting. Clint often says that democracy can be messy, but everything I saw on town meeting day was smooth, and it's something to be proud of.
The town meeting results are included in the select board meeting materials on the website and in the members packet. The results of the advisory votes are not in that document, but we did ask the voters present what they thought about the idea that some towns such as Hinesburg do to separate the budget into votes by department. That was not a popular option. There was also the question of should we move all public questions, not just financial questions, to Australian ballot. That was also not popular. And then there was some discussion about adding an article at the next town meeting to consider moving the budget back to a voice vote. The voters present seem to be more or less split. Maybe those opposed to changing it back had perhaps a slight edge. This is something, though, that we discussed afterward as perhaps requiring a town meeting this fall where there are a couple options to us. One of them is we could go ahead and move at that time to go ahead and go back to a voice vote to an open town meeting. Or we could put, should this be on Australian ballot itself so that everybody could vote whether we should go back to a voice vote. It gets complicated. Did you want to add anything to that or?
No, you summarized it well.
See, the other thing that came up on the floor, it's actually in the bleachers, but metaphorically on the floor, was could we come up with some sort of hybrid, like have a meeting where people had a chance to modify the budget before it went out for a vote? It seems de facto that's kind of what we do in our budget meetings, but we might publicize a final budget meeting as a chance for people to weigh in. It's also awkward. What was the maximum number of people we had attend a budget meeting this past year?
A handful.
Yeah, so not more than 20.
And many of them were people here who were on behalf of the charitable organizations asking us to.
Yeah.
So I personally find I'm receptive to the idea, but I was wrestling with how it could actually work, where you get enough people. And by enough people, I think we'd be talking in the neighborhood of 150 to give some representative sample or some sample of the voters that then would potentially by voice vote modify the budget. That's sort of an arcane combination of voice vote and Australian ballot. I don't know if it makes sense, but it had a certain amount of appeal.
It would, as I understand, it would still be advisory.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it's town meeting.
Right.
You have a question in the audience?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
David Sunshine, I would suggest that maybe you try that 1 year and see if it attracts any more people. And maybe you build up from your budget vote, your budget meetings along the way to a final budget broadcast that this is going to exist. Hold it maybe over in the library where there's more room. If a lot of people show up, then maybe it's something that's workable, and if it doesn't, it's not. I think the frustration with the voters is just they're used to having a say in the budget. They still do, but no one goes to those earlier meetings, and they leave it to town meetings. So it's just sort of getting them used to something else. If it doesn't work, then so be it.
Gee, maybe we could frame it as a budget hearing, which is a little more formal than just our budget discussions. I'm just thinking of a way to hit that point where people might be more motivated to come as a pilot.
Yeah, I also think if we kind of set that date in October, when we start to talk about the budget and say it's going to be on January 10th,
Yeah.
and then we work towards that goal. It still may not be a binding vote. I
Mhm.
don't know if we could legally do that, but at least
Oh.
that this is the time to come back, have some of Jay's famous baked goods and give feedback on the budget. I think it could work.
Right, the one thing we have to be careful of, we were making changes to the budget almost up to the deadline this year.
That's why we have to set it and stick to it.
Yeah, late enough, but not so late that it's untenable.
Yeah, because you would need probably at least a week or two after that if there were suggestions from that meeting to make those changes to come back to finalize it.
Yep.
But we could talk about that, I think. I think there's a good solution there somewhere. We've got some chat here if it's relevant.
Oh. Okay, we have a chat message from, I'm assuming. Well, that's Tyler M, so I don't know if that's Tyler. Is that Tyler Mesha or some other Tyler? Speaking as myself, hybrid would be interesting. Balanced accessibility of Australian ballot, but keeps the ability to modify on the floor. Bennington also has a representative town meeting as well. To add to that, this was the subject of discussion at the Vermont League of Cities and Towns Town Fair last fall, where there was a whole panel of towns that do exactly this, who have various carrots to try to get people to come and make suggestions and comment on the budget as it stands. And I do think that would be a good idea. The trick would be, you have to start a tradition sometime.
Yeah.
And then after that, they can often be self-perpetuating. So we'd have to really build it up the first time. Any other comments on town meeting? Okay. Our next item on the agenda is a reminder that the deadline to apply to serve on town committees, boards, and commissions is April 9th for most committees. The Water and Sewer Commission applications are due May 30th. Development Review Board applications are due by May 14th. Andrews Community Forest applications are due by April 4th. And can I share? I don't know if I have sharing yet.
Yeah, let me give you those.
Okay, for those of you listening or watching the recording later, if you go to the town website, richmondvt.gov, and you click on boards and meetings, and you click right here at the top on all committee and board members, you'll see a link right here for how to apply. You can fill it out, you can print off a PDF, or you can just use an online form. So it's really go to the town website and it's basically 2 clicks. And there are a lot of interesting opportunities. For example, the town inspector of shingles, lumber, and
Just wood.
wood. Now, I believe John Carr currently has that, but maybe it's time for some new blood. We don't know.
That's not to be confused with the official weigher of coal.
Correct, or the fence viewer. Last year, we've had to get by with no fence viewers because my wife decided she didn't want to continue. But she's recently stopped being a JP, so I persuaded her to apply again. So our long national nightmare is over.
And those are somewhat statutory requirements that don't do a lot of work, but there's lots of committees that do need lots of.
This is absolutely
They're
true.
very, very active throughout the year, so please take a look. Call committee members if you have some questions about what the duties are, and please apply.
Right.
Jay, just a comment that we've said this before, but it's striking to me how many volunteers across different boards and commissions contribute to making the town work as a livable, desirable place. I mean, if you add them up, it's a lot of people.
It is.
And if we relied on the select board alone, we'd have a problem. I say that honestly, as a member of the select board, I mean, because some of these require time separate from these select board meetings and really diving into topic areas.
Yeah.
So I would say it's both valued and valuable, the volunteer participation.
For example, the Recreation Committee is currently more or less non-existent because all the seats are open. But we have had a Recreation Committee in the past. And if there was interest in people serving in those seats, it could be revived and really have a latitude to do to take recreation in whatever direction they thought might be advisable. So that's just one of many examples. So I would encourage people who have some free time or who want to play a part in how the town functions to take a look at the list of available positions, boards, and commissions and apply for one or two. Okay, our next item on the agenda relates to the University of Vermont Frog recording project. And would you like to handle that?
Sure, they reached out to us last week. They're working on a project to record the sounds of wood frogs in the spring. They wanted to start this past Friday at a spot over near the Overrockers Park area. It's a very small device, 3 inches by 3 inches. They're either strapped to a tree or nailed to a post. So we give them the go ahead to go forward with that. It's one time in, they set it up, it runs for a month, they'll come back, they'll remove it. They have their data, so it's very not intrusive at all. So I told them they could go forward with it, but wanted to inform the select board so that in case there's any questions about if anybody even sees the device, that's what we're doing, and that's what they're doing.
Can we have a voiceover of David Attenborough announcing the frogs as they cross?
Is he on that celebrity app where you can get people to read scripts?
Cameo?
If the Cameo?
It might be.
If so, then I'd say perhaps that's a possibility.
I do remember a year or so ago, we had a request from was it the Conservation Commission to pay for some reflective vests. And of course, the obvious thought was one per frog, help them cross, but it turned out no, those were for the humans.
Well, we actually have that on the agenda again today, so you can debate frog versus human in about an hour or so.
Okay. Okay, any other comments or questions about the frog project? Just if anybody does ask you about a gadget attached to a tree at Overrocker Park, we know about it. Okay. Now, the next item is a little bit more substantial. We're going to have a public hearing on the fiscal year 26 capital plan. Before we can discuss it, we need a motion to actually open the public hearing. So would somebody like to make the motion?
Jay, this is David. I move to open the public hearing to consider adoption of the fiscal year 26 capital plan.
Do I have a second?
This is Bart. I will second that.
Okay, we have a motion to open the public hearing to consider adoption of the fiscal year 26 capital plan. Motion made by David Sanders, seconded by Bart Hill. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, please state your name and your vote.
Adam, aye.
Caitlin, I.
Bart, aye.
David, aye.
Jay, aye. Okay, I would like to turn to our town finance director, Connie Bona, and our town manager, Josh Arneson, to present the capital plan.
Sure, I'll give an overview, and then Connie, if you want to jump in with anything I might have missed, it's a very short overview, but this is something we do on an annual basis. We've been evolving the capital plan, I think, in a pretty good direction over the last couple of years. And we've been talking about this version since October when we started the budget meetings. So the capital plan is constructed as a tool to help plan for purchases of capital equipment, buildings, and infrastructure. The plan builds on the direction of capital expenditures that was started in FY23, which is continued in the FY26 budget, and specifically planning was used to use unassigned funds, restricted funds, reserve funds, and money raised from taxes to pay for capital equipment without taking loans. That said, there will likely still be occasions where we need some loans or bonds in the future for larger projects. But right now, Connie and our department heads have it structured so that the major capital purchases are paid for without taking loans. Connie took a look at it a couple of years ago, and I think it was like upwards of $1 million in interest that we paid over the last 10 plus years or so. So although sometimes those contributions to reserve funds seem a bit high and you're building up a lot of money in certain reserves, there's sort of two benefits. You do earn some interest on those and we're not paying interest. So it helps to save for things. So Connie, is there anything more you'd like to provide as an overview?
that I can think of.
Okay.
Jay, I'd also add that this has unless we run into the very high cost items, this has the benefit also of kind of flattening out the tax rate if we spread it out and things are overlapping versus a bunch of boluses of one-time expenses or, oh, here's a bunch of bond payments, they come and they go. So try to flatten out our tax rate and investments, if you will.
Yes, that's a very good point, Bart. If anybody listening happens to look at the capital plan, which is on the website for this meeting and also elsewhere under town finances on the website, you'll notice that the amount committed to various projects can vary by year, so that, as Bart says, the net effect is fairly flat. Are there any questions from anybody on the select board about the capital plan that we haven't already brought up? Are there any questions from members of the public present or coming in via Zoom? Okay, I see something in the chat. I don't know what that relates to this.
Going back to the,
Oh, okay. Okay, we would, if there's no further discussion, we need to close the hearing. There's a motion in the memo.
Jay, this is David. I move to close the public hearing to consider adoption of the fiscal year 26 plan.
This is Bart, I will second that.
Okay, we have a motion made by David Sanders, seconded by Bart Hill, moving to close the public hearing to consider adoption of the fiscal year 26 capital plan. Any discussion on the motion?
I'll close it.
Okay, please state your name and your vote.
Adam, I.
Caitlin, I.
Art, I.
David, I.
And Jay, aye. Finally, we would need a motion to adopt said plan, should that be the select board's interest.
Recording in progress.
Jay, this is David. I move to adopt the fiscal year 26 capital plan.
This is Bart, I will second that.
And we have a motion by David Sanders, seconded by Bart Hill, to adopt the fiscal year 26 capital plan. Their discussion.
So we re-adopt this annually, correct? So we've made some tweaks to our contributions to the capital reserves. And those are for the most part reflected in here. Assuming we're gonna contribute money to make up for that. We get ARPA money, or sorry, FEMA money back, is that kind of the?
Right.
yeah, those will replenish those accounts.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I know this is late to the game, but we have a capital plan of placing 4 police cruisers and we have 1 police officer, and that seems to be a long-term trajectory. So not putting the cart before the horse, but it seems not asking that question, kind of not be doing our due diligence as a select board. I mean, are we really gonna go down the path of purchasing another one next year, it looks like?
So I think there's nothing in the plan for FY
2027.
26.
2 years.
So I think we've got some time to kind of take a look at what things look like in the fall when we get to the FY 27 budget, and so do we still need that? Do we not? And the thing about the capital plan is, like, I feel like the minute you approve it, it changes, like, because there's always new pricing, there's new staffing changes, there's something new coming out. So this, I think, is sort of looked at as, with everything that we know right now, and if everything sort of falls into place for police, that would be the plan. But in 6 months, when we start to look at
6
the
or 8 months
budget,
from now, and we're not there, then we should reevaluate before we adopt the next one.
absolutely. Yeah, again, it's a guide, and you just sort of make changes based on new information.
David?
It is worth keeping an eye on, and it's something we should call out. But we also need to remember that this is crazy, and I'm no expert on this. This is just what I've been told, that you can only buy police cruisers for 1 week a year. And there's a lead time in getting it in. But yeah, we should certainly look at that. It may change, but the information we would need to change that won't be available for months, so.
Yeah, I believe at one point, if you ordered a cruiser today, you would be getting it in 18 months.
Yeah.
And that's assuming that today was part of the week where you can order them.
Gotcha.
And the lead time on everything in general, Pete was updating at our department head meeting last week that the lead time for plow trucks is becoming almost as long as a fire truck. So we're gonna have to deal with those challenges as well.
Okay. Bart?
And I'll only note the vagaries of the impact of tariffs and supply chains
We're not gonna
on,
talk about that today.
on those things, where it also illustrates that the capital plan is fungible. What we think the prices are now might be different at some point in the future.
Absolutely.
Possibly drastically so.
Who knows, somebody might just start giving fire trucks away.
I do want to just point out that the department heads and Connie put a lot of work into this in consultation with Josh. And this isn't a one and done. This is an evolving document that always has information that affects it. which is a good thing. I think, Jay, you alluded to this. In the last 10 years, we've saved over $1 million in interest that would have been borne on bonds to buy these things.
Right.
That we are paying cash for. And I'll use Pete for an example. Highway did an exhaustive analysis, a cost benefit analysis of the service life of a vehicle, and they determined the sweet spot of selling it for the most return before it starts to become expensive to maintain. So just wanted to call that out, but that's all information that goes into this ongoing calculation.
All valid points. Anything further? Okay, we have a motion on the floor to adopt the fiscal year 26 capital plan. Please state your name and your vote.
Adam, I.
Caitlin, I.
Bard, aye.
David, I.
And Jay, aye. Okay, our next item on the agenda is consideration of approval of a sign for the flag return box. Could you give us a quick overview of the flag return box?
I'll let our Eagle Scout candidate,
he
Mike
isn't here, I'm
Dennis,
sorry.
he is here. So Mike, why don't you take this away?
Hey, first of all, I'm really sorry it took me this long to get back about something so simple. My schedule's been kind of a nightmare. Whoa,
Okay,
Sorry, Mike, we had
that's all
a,
right.
I want to make sure we're not getting bombed by anything that seems to be. Okay. Just wanted to make sure it didn't like go into something more. I think we'll keep an eye here. Okay. All right. Sorry about that.
That's all right.
The mouse close here.
okay, so Mike,
Okay. So, yeah, anyways, a little while ago, I put in my Eagle project, the flag deposit box, which my dad was in earlier and checked the bag and said it's getting a lot of use out of it already, which is good to hear. But my budget had a surplus a little bit, and we decided the last time I was here that I would use that budget surplus to make a bigger, better sign to put on it that I would just make with a piece of plywood, and I would wood burn out the lettering myself to try and use up some of that extra funds in a productive way. And this is just kind of the tentative layout that I set out for it. It would pretty clearly label what the box is, list the town office to reach out to if it's full, because putting troop information on there that would still be relevant in 30, 40 years would be kind of difficult, because even our website pages, like our last one got retired like 2 years ago. That stuff changes all the time. And there's usually a new scoutmaster every few years or so. So it's just easier for us to put you guys' contact on there, and then you can reach out to us to get them collected. And I would clearly mark on there that it's for U.S. flags only, because these kinds of boxes sometimes struggle with getting other flags put in them for retirement, and we can only accept U.S. flags for a retirement ceremony. So there would be two things to consider here. One is whether you like this general idea, and obviously it's going to look a lot better than this Google drawing when I actually make it. But the other thing is, when I haven't picked out a board yet, but when I do, it's going to be well under probably $30. And the budget surplus that I had is more like $60, $70, if I remember right. I think it was 68. So first, you can tell me whether you like this design, and then you can talk about what you want to do with the rest of the funds that we would have if I did do this.
Looks fine to me.
Yeah, it's lovely.
I do have a peripheral question.
Sure thing.
I frankly didn't think about this till right now. What is the protocol or etiquette for disposing of state flag? If there is one.
To my knowledge, state flags don't have any special rules the way U.S. flags do. So if we had it in the box, then I would turn it over to some other authority or probably just ask the Scoutmaster what to do with it. We wouldn't be able to retire it the same way we do an American flag.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Any further discussion? Any questions from members of the public? Okay, seeing no further discussion, would someone like to make a motion?
I move to approve the sign for that flag return box, town center.
Second that.
Okay, we have a motion from Adam Wood, seconded by Caitlin Filkins, to approve the sign for the flag return box. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please state your name and your vote.
Adam, I.
Caitlin, I.
Bart, aye. David, aye.
And Jay, aye. And Mike, thank you very much for your work on this. It has been a peeve of mine for years that people leave flags flying till the stripes have separated and they're in ribbons and they're faded. And if anybody can't afford a new flag, let me know, I'll buy them one. Okay, moving on to our next item on the agenda is consideration of appointment of a delinquent tax collector. Lori Brisbane has served in this role for the past several years and is the only applicant this year. Her application is in the packet. Any questions or comments from members of the board?
Lori's here too. I don't know if you
Oh,
want to-
I'm sorry, Lori.
Hi.
Lori, would you like to come up and tell us why you want to continue in this exciting job?
Just, I've been doing this, will be my 15th year since I'm appointed. I've gained a strong relationship with a lot of our townspeople, and I want to continue to do so to help them and to help the town.
Any questions for Lori? Okay, would anyone like to make a motion?
Jay, this is Bart. I move to appoint Lori Brisbane to the position of delinquent tax collectors.
Adam, second.
Okay, we have a motion by Bart Hill, seconded by Adam Wood to appoint Lori Brisbane to the position of delinquent tax collector. Seeing no further discussion, please state your name and your vote.
Adam, I.
Caitlin, I.
Bart, aye.
David, I.
And Jay, aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lori. Okay, our next item on the agenda is consideration of approving a vendor for grounds maintenance around the town center campus. And could you kind of give some of the background on this that you've discussed with Duncan?
Sure.
Yeah, and I'm here too, so.
Okay, Duncan, you want to tell us about the bidding process and the recommended vendor?
Yes, yeah. First of all, want to thank all the contractors who did take time to put in a bid. This was the largest amount of bids we've ever had. They all do take a lot of time to try to understand our grounds, which is not so easy. It's spread out and difficult to understand. And I think once again, our bids showed we had a good variety from, of what the basic market value is. And I wouldn't not recommend Mow and Maintain again because they've been with us for 2 years. They're giving us the same price as last year for this year. And once again, there's plenty of probably other ways we could look at it, but I do recommend Mow and Maintain, even though there's great other contractors there.
Okay, thank you, Duncan.
There's one thing I'll just add on Mow and Maintain is there's definitely been some specific feedback and critiques over the last 2 years, and they've responded extremely well and promptly and really kind of risen to the challenge, everything we've thrown at them. Particularly around the cemetery. As you can imagine, there's people that are very particular about the way the cemetery should look and be mowed, and they've spent a lot of time with the commission and with other stakeholders going through, seeing what's possible, what's not possible. And I think that they've done a really good job there as well as other places.
I noticed Mow and Maintain was not the lowest bid, but their bid was still very competitive. But as Josh just alluded to, the first year we contracted with them, there was a learning curve and there were mistakes made. And they were very receptive to our concerns and immediately made things right. And in the 2 years that we've worked with them, they've been very accommodating. Any issue that comes up is promptly taken care of. And I can't say that the references for the other companies were unconcerning. So I have confidence with going with Mow and Maintain again.
Yeah, and that was my point. We have the high and the low. You can kind of remove those. You see the middle ground of what the market value is for that for a contractor, I wouldn't, I mean, I couldn't imagine doing it for that. So I'm impressed with those, but I think it's a good RFP to look at every year and just review. But once again, I could give it to other contractors, but I feel like I would be giving up a lot.
Yeah, I think spending a little bit more to get a lot of peace of mind is money well spent.
Sure.
David?
David Sunshine, does this include the hillside leading up to the water storage building on Jericho Road?
Don't think it includes that.
No, it
hillside.
does not.
Who's
I
supposed to
do not
make?
think so.
I think Water Resources, right?
Yes, I think they do.
Yeah, I don't think that for the last couple of years, we've really done much brush trimming. in
Let me
that
just
area.
say that since it's been built, it's never been trimmed.
Okay.
I go by it at least 4 times a day. And I have said this to you before, Josh. I think it should be maintained.
Okay, that's just something that we could talk with Steve about and probably easily
Being
add
watered.
on.
Thank you.
Being watered.
Okay, thank you, David.
Yeah.
Bart?
So it does strike me that either that like the Water Sewer Commission can do with it, or it's a potential amendment to a contract or specification, right? You add something to it, as this has been bid out with a fair amount of detail in the RFP. For those of you who haven't looked at it, it's pretty explicit about what work will be done. One other thing I'll call out, and I'm not sure this influences any decision, but one of the other bidders was talking about that they are using electric equipment for some of the maintenance. So I don't know, do we know, does our current contractor do anything that's electric or not internal combustion engine?
No, I have not followed up on that, as far as I know, but I think that is a good one. I think every year when we repost the RFP, we learn something new, and that might be something we consider. I would hate to like kind of put it on that, but it is something that I noticed as well.
I haven't seen any large commercial electric mowers, so I'd be curious to see what that equipment is. Yeah, I tried to look at it, but I couldn't pull it up.
It just for context, it describes, one of the other bidders describes 3 electric powered pieces of equipment: a Mean Green Vanquish stand-on 52-inch mower,
It's a good size mower.
a Mean Green Evo 60-inch mower with bagging systems, and a Toro Z Master Revolution Series 60-inch commercial zero-turn lawn mower. All 3 of those described as electric powered.
Yeah.
That's good to know. Adam?
I just saw the prices of the electric mowers and I can understand why not all of them have them.
Okay,
Not including the new batteries every once in a
Yeah.
while.
Especially in a commercial application, they're gonna go faster.
They're double the cost.
okay. Any further discussion? Any further questions? Okay. Given the question regarding the slope leading up to the tank, we should probably follow up with Steve about that, but do we want to go ahead with the motion tonight, or do we need to amend?
No, we're not gonna amend the RFP. I
Okay.
think we would add that on as a change order to whichever contractor we go forward with.
Okay. Okay, would anyone like to make a motion?
Jay, this is David. I move to award the 2025 grounds maintenance contract to mow and maintain.
Is there a second?
Adam, second?
Okay, we have a motion made by David Sander, seconded by Adam Wood, to move to award the 2025 grounds maintenance contract to mow and maintain. Is there any discussion? If seeing none, oh, I see a hand up from June Heston. June, please go ahead.
I just want to point out a note in the chat regarding this.
Okay, thank you for pointing that out, June. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
We have a message in the chat. I'd like to, I believe that this is Nick from the owner of Mow and Maintain. I'd like to thank the board a ton for letting me take care of this beautiful town. We have tried our best to accommodate any asks. I'd be happy to help with that area that needs to be trimmed as well if someone would like to walk it over with me. We do offer electric mowers. Thank you, Nick, owner, Mow and Maintain.
Good.
Thank you, Nick. Okay, the motion is to award the contract to Mow and Maintain. Please state your name and your vote.
Adam, I.
Caitlin, aye.
Bard, aye.
David, I.
And Jay, aye. Okay, thank you, Nick. Okay, our next item on the agenda is the one that was alluded to a little while ago about safety vests for amphibians.
Yep.
No, I'm being facetious. We have a item consideration of approving the use of funds from the Conservation Reserve Fund for the Salamander Crossing project. And I have Judy here. Judy, would you like to speak to this?
Sure. Thank you. So, we did a pilot project last year, courtesy of the town for approving those funds to get us started with this. And some of the crossings are on Route 2, and there's a lot of fast-moving traffic there. So we were hoping this year we could continue to maintain this as a pilot project because we're a little concerned about the safety issues before we open it to the general public. And we may never open Route 2 to the general public. Anyway, I'm sorry, I'm digressing. But we wanted to get additional safety vests and other safety-based material to help us through this project. And in fact, we're going to ask you for even more at the next meeting. So sorry we couldn't do this all at once, but some of these things were discovered. Helpful tools were discovered after we put in this proposal.
So for the voters listening and for anyone else interested, the Conservation Reserve Fund currently has a balance of $372,757. The request is for up to $600 in Conservation Reserve funds to cover the cost of additional safety and herp collection gear as described in the Richmond Save Our Salamanders network proposal dated February 11th, 2025. This request meets Conservation Reserve Fund criteria A1 through A5 and B4 and B5 as enumerated in the proposal as related to providing access to and preserving recreational opportunities and conserving an important natural resource. These funds must be expended within 3 years of the date of final approval. So that's the request. Any questions from any on the board and comments? Any comments from members of the public or on Zoom? Okay. Would anybody like to make the motion?
I move to approve the use of $600 in conservation reserve funds to cover the cost of additional safety and help for collection gear as described in the Richmond Save Our Salamanders network proposals dated February 11th, 2025. The request meets CRF criteria A1 to A5 and B4 and B5 as enumerated in the proposal as related to providing access to and preserving recreational opportunities and conserving an important natural resource. Funds must be expended within 3 years of the date of final approval.
Okay. Do we have a second?
This is Bard, I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion from Adam Wood and a second from Bard Hill to approve the use of $600 of Conservation Reserve funds for the aforementioned gear. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please state your name and your vote.
Adam, I.
Caitlin, aye.
Bard, aye.
David, I.
And Jay, aye. Okay, Jay,
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
and we thank the salamanders also. Okay, our next item is consideration of approving a Hammerhead turnaround and a waiver to the rural road specifications for a 2-lot subdivision at 1582 Jericho Road. The packet contains a memo from zoning administrator Tyler Mesha, who is, I believe, Tyler, is that?
Yeah, that's Tyler here.
Okay.
If we need any.
Tyler is on the call. If you have any questions, there's a packet of information from the applicant, a copy of the rural road specifications and standards. Could you just pull up the diagram of the proposed turnaround?
And David could probably walk us through it pretty well. It's his project.
David.
Thank you. David Sunshine. So the roadway that we're proposing is an existing roadway. It's been in existence since at least 1850, as it is in the 1850 Beers Atlas. It presently starts at the Jericho Road with plenty of sight distance, and heads back. There are presently 2 houses on it up top there and on the right. We're proposing 2 more houses to use it. It also provides access to our forest land, which has been set aside with an easement. So we've preserved 100 acres of it. And that forest land has provided walking trails and bike trails to many people. So we're proposing 2 more houses, which are on the right side of the road. And unfortunately, we've owned the land over 50 years. And when the engineers came back, they pointed out to me that we have wetlands that we're going through, and the road goes right through the wetlands, which is sort of in the middle there. And you can see it's on the buffer side of the wetlands. So we would like not to widen the road as it goes through the wetlands, as that will have further impact on the wetlands. And we'd like to leave it in the width it's in, and then provide the hammerhead, which you can see is sort of that T-shaped thing right there in the middle.
Could you use your mouse to? There you go.
Yeah. And that's a little further back than it would normally be, but by putting it further back, it will provide a hammerhead for and cover all the houses, rather than closer to the road where it will only benefit 1 house. And would also give any rescue or fire more opportunity to use it if it's needed. So I'd like to point out that the DRB at our preliminary hearing did approve both waivers. And that's numbers 3 and 4 on their conclusions. And we would hope that the select board would also see fit to allow this.
Okay. Members of the board, do you have questions about the specifics of what we're being asked to waive or anything like that?
Just so the road's existing already, right?
I'm sorry,
The road's existing already, right? That was you said?
since the 1850s.
And there's enough room for 2 cars to pass by on it, isn't that?
It's 14 to 15 feet wide. But there's so few there's not that much traffic.
3 houses. So.
Yeah, but part of the waiver is that if the wetlands weren't there, he would be required to upgrade that section of road to the same standards as the road that goes to the first house.
Right.
So that's really what you're waiving, is that can be a little narrower.
Okay, we have a question in the audience.
Hi, Chelsea Brooks. Sorry, excuse me. Sorry, it's not a question, it's just a few comments. I spoke at the DRB meeting and I felt necessitated to speak here after reading the documents in the packet. Because it's being presented as this is an existing road, and I think on the 1850 Beers survey, like it was, right? Back in the 1850s, it was a road that connected Richmond to another town, but right now it's a driveway. So like when it's being presented as this is a road and we're just looking to sort of upgrade or change, I just wanted to sort of clear to the select board that it's a driveway that's being changed, because driveways per Richmond zoning can only serve up to 3 homes. And the waiver isn't simply because they're trying to sort of reduce wetland impact. Essentially, the first piece of the waiver is to allow them to put the hammerhead past the wetlands. Because the way that the zoning administrator is interpreting our zoning is that currently zoning, like I said, an access for up to 3 homes is a driveway. This obviously, the access at Jericho Road is through 4 homes. So that can't be a driveway. It has to be up to either private road standards or rural road standards. And so they've are our zoning administrator has made the decision that once you get past that first house and the rest of it is serving 3 homes, the rest can be a shared driveway. And so really the only part that is a rural road is that little first chunk. And so the hammerhead per zoning should go before the wetlands, just past that first home. So the hammerhead going past it, in and of itself is a waiver, the location of it. And then because it's going further back, also then allowing the road to stay narrower because a rural road would have to be 24 feet wide with 2-foot shoulders. And so the current, while I don't have any problem with this, like I think it's a fine plan, I just think that it should be presented in a really clear manner, especially sort of given the circumstance that it is a waiver and a divergence from our written standards and written approvals. The last and final thing that I'd like to mention is just Adam asked about the width. I think it's 14 to 15 feet wide from my memory and from what David just said from the DRB meeting. And I do not know personally, like what's a safe passing for 2 cars. I tried to ask ChatGPT and got exorbitant, like 24-foot wide roads, right? It said you can go a little narrower for things that are rural. But it's to be considered is that it's 2 cars that'll be passing, and it's a pedestrian right of way for his for the easement for the Sip of Sunshine trails there, which then the town plans to hopefully connect up to Andrews Community Forest if everybody's familiar. So then that would be even more potential pedestrian and bike traffic. And there's just some inconsistencies in town zoning with accesses and roads and widths and all this. The only thing that I can find for a shared driveway width is an image that's attached to our public works specs. And that says that a shared drive has to be at least 15 feet wide. And that's not considering additional pedestrian traffic. But I think that's.
Thank you for your very detailed explanation, David.
In response, since the rural road standards have been adopted, all the zoning administrators have interpreted that you can go to where you have to go to where it serves 4 houses, following the rural road standards. After that, it can go back down to a shared driveway, which is what we have done. So we're not doing anything differently. And the ordinance is not being interpreted any differently than it's been done by at least 5 other zoning administrators since rural road standards were passed. Let me also point out that yes, we have opened our land to the public to allow them access, but we do, part of our easement with the state where we preserve the land is that we will not allow motor vehicles. So there is no parking there. There is no other traffic being created by the use of our roads, our road for pedestrian, dog walking, and bikes. And out of, I have a letter that's part of your packet from my engineer who explains that from a safety standpoint, in his professional opinion, the Hammerhead is better located where it is than closer to the road.
Okay, thank you, David. Bart?
Jay, just for clarity, could you show where the width changes? I can kind of see it, but it's a little. It's right
I'm
there.
glad to do that.
Here, I think.
It's where the red circle is there.
Yeah, well, the wetlands start here, so we're.
Right.
And the driveway to my neighbor is right there. That's past that, then it's only 3 houses. And the really difficult part is just right in here. That's where we discovered the wetlands.
So your point is it meets the road standard up to that red line, and
Yeah.
after that it meets the driveway standards
Yes.
because it.
And that is the way the ordinance has been interpreted for ever since the rural road standards have been promulgated.
Other questions from the board?
I guess
Other-
as
go ahead.
someone who would have to back up a fire truck into the Hammerhead at some point potentially. Hopefully not, but potentially. I don't see any.
We
I
also,
don't see any reason the Hammerhead.
we also have a pond off to the, where that wetland is. There's a pond in the middle that we built in 1975. And that provides water for any necessary uses should that ever occur. And hopefully never will.
I mean, I think the location of the Hammerhead seems fine. I don't know what advantage there would be to moving it closer to the road, even if there were no wetland there. That location doesn't seem alarming to me at all. If anything, it's more useful where it is.
Okay, any other comments? Okay, do we have a motion that anybody would like to make?
Caitlin, I move to waive the rural road standards to approve the Hammerhead turnaround and to approve that the Hammerhead turnaround be located further down the shared access without being required to widen the existing driveway in the class 2 wetland as presented for the subdivision at 1582 Jericho Road.
Thank you.
Does Barnell second that?
Okay, we have a motion from Caitlin Filkin, seconded by Bart Hill, to move to waive the rural road standards to approve the Hammerhead turnaround and to approve that the Hammerhead turnaround be located further down the shared access without being required to widen the existing driveway and the class 2 wetlands as presented for the subdivision at 1582 Jericho Road. Any final thoughts? Okay, seeing none, please state your name and your vote.
Adam, I.
Caitlin, aye.
Bart, aye.
David, I.
And Jay, aye. I keep wanting to vote right after Bart.
It's habit, you know.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, David. Okay, our next item on the agenda is consideration of setting the salary for the incoming town clerk. I see that our new town clerk is here and our immediate outgoing town clerk is also here. I would like to have Josh handle this.
Sure. So I just put this on the agenda because I think it's really the board's position to set the salary for the town clerk as she's elected. Town manager does not oversee the town clerk position. For the compensation study that was completed in 2022, and we've continued to update and still use in this current fiscal year. This position has a starting salary of $73,796, which is grade 7, step A, plus a stipend of 2% of the annual salary for completing financial tasks to ensure separation of duties. And for the compensation studies, that's where somebody with like really no town clerk experience would start. If Suzanne had more years of experience doing town clerk duties, we would bump her up the scale, but she comes in fairly new to this position.
Okay, questions from the board?
Can you just, Josh, can you elaborate on what the stipend is and what the separation duties will be there?
Yeah, so it has to do with financial things. So it's I think like taking the bank deposits to the bank, kind of handling the checks so that there's, someone receives it, goes to Connie, she processes, and then it goes back to somebody else to verify and then deposit.
Okay.
Any other comments, questions, thoughts? Okay, since we have our new town clerk here, Suzanne, is there any comment you'd like to share? You're good? Okay.
And I guess just to also note, this was the salary that we advertised when we put the position out. So it shouldn't be a surprise to Suzanne or to anybody in the public. That's where we're starting.
Would anybody like to make a motion?
Jay, this is David. I move to set the salary for the newly elected town clerk, Suzanne Parent, at $73,796, which is grade 7, step A for the fiscal year 25 pay grid, plus a stipend equal to 2% of annual salary for completing financial tasks to ensure separation of duties.
Do we have a second?
Is Barnell second that?
Okay, we have a motion from, there's the train. Are we on schedule?
We are actually a minute early.
Okay. We have a motion from David Sanders, seconded by Bart Hill, to move to set the salary for the newly elected town clerk Suzanne Parent at $73,796, which is grade 7, step A of the fiscal year 25 pay grid, plus a stipend equal to 2% of the annual salary for completing financial tasks to ensure separation of duties. Is there any final thought? Okay, seeing none, please state your name and your vote.
Adam, I.
Caitlin, I.
Bart, aye.
David, I.
And Jay, aye. Congratulations again, Susanna, on being our new town clerk, and
Yeah.
Linda, thank you again for your many years of dedicated service.
Thank you both.
It's good that we don't have to get new stationery for new clerk, right?
Linda, I would be curious, are you going to keep the license plate?
She is, I asked her.
She is, okay.
I am keeping the license plate. It means a lot because of who had it before me.
Linda's license plate is clerk. Clerk one, I apologize. Clerk one.
Yeah, it's Clerk 1, and that was the same license plate that Williston Town Clerk Deb Beckett had for many, many years.
Okay, our next item on the agenda is discussion of next steps for the police department. Due to not moving forward with hiring Anthony Cambridge as police chief, Richmond is being currently covered for chief services by Hinesburg's acting police chief. Town manager Josh Arneson recommends reconvening the police governance committee and meeting with Hinesburg to discuss next steps. So actually, and since this says I'm gonna have you do it.
Yeah, I just thought that that might be sort of the next logical step. It seemed like the way that both towns have been going for the past couple of years was to try to move towards more cooperation between the towns, be it the contract that we had for police services and chief services. We actually haven't met as that subcommittee in probably over a year. The committee was originally formed, I think, about 3 years ago when we first started to explore this option. It consisted of 2 select board members from each town, the town manager, and the acting police chief in each town. In this case, that would be Frank Bryan. We don't have an acting police chief in Richmond. And I think it's good to kind of check in, see how both towns are feeling about the current agreement, and then discuss potential ideas for moving forward. I think the top of the list would probably be what are our next steps for police chief and what kind of agreement would that look like? And I think a subcommittee would be a good time to be able to discuss a lot of those topics.
So just a reminder for everybody that we budgeted half of a chief position. I believe Hinesburg also budgeted half with, at least I can say from our town, an expectation we would continue this collaborative relationship. I'd also add that the question of sort of regionalization or inter-town collaboration has been kicking around for literally decades. And there is a sense that, especially in terms of some infrastructure like police chiefs, there are advantages in terms of what we might consider cost, quality, and access for sharing chief services across more than one town. And so that's a conversation we've had numerous times in the past. People like the Regional Planning Commission have brought this up as one of the examples of where we're probably headed across the county for more collaboration across towns. There's some work in the legislature about allowing more intermunicipal kinds of work under more fluid statutory authority. So I think it's sort of the kind of thing that makes sense. And this is just if we think it makes sense, this is a way to keep moving that forward in our current state.
Okay, thank you, Barton.
I mean, I think that the long-term goal of collaboration obviously is beneficial for both towns. And it could overcome a lot of the challenges we've been facing. It's worth exploring.
I'd just like to throw in something that may surprise some of you. Josh and I have had a discussion with one of my coworkers who happens to be the vice chair of the Shelburne Select Board. And they would be interested in exploring, long-term, the idea of collaborating with us on police and perhaps other services as well. And I think if we obviously we need to get this working on a 2-town basis before we take over the world. But I think that from the comments that I've heard at the Vermont League of Cities and Towns meetings, there is a lot of interest across the state in sharing police services.
Seems like we could get this growing bigger and bigger, and then at some point maybe there'd be like a statewide agency that would just kind of do this in a coherent way. Yeah. I mean, I know Shelburne's obviously closer than a lot of towns, when we start looking at an area that big to cover, it's like.
Well, this,
Yeah.
Sure. It's too hard to solve problems, and that there's a shortage of personnel. And municipal budgets are going so high. There is an economy of scale in combining resources. And pooling officers, so it's potentially a win-win.
Great.
One thing to add, I was talking to our officer, Corporal Cohen, earlier this afternoon, and he was bringing me up to speed on the agreement that Essex Town and Essex Junction currently have for policing, which I hadn't followed too closely at all. And it sounds like they're sort of maybe a step beyond where we were with some of our contracts. But not quite a union municipal district, which is fairly cumbersome and lengthy to set up. So it might be worth looking at that model as a potential next step for us.
So they're short of creating a district, but they've kind of taken it.
Yeah, I think so. Essex Town is the police department, and then Essex Junction contracts with them. So it could be a model where we do that, and then it sort of centralizes the leadership structure, and then all the supplies and staff are with one agency which contracts out. And I know there's potentially some things we'd have to make sure that whichever agency is contracting for has equal representation. If there's ever like, hey, we need more coverage over here, we're not getting it, a way to get that. But it'd be interesting, I think, to look at how Essex has that set up as potential way to move forward.
Cool.
And yeah, thanks for bringing that to my attention.
Did you want to add anything else, Matt?
Yeah,
And also, where's Duke?
he's downstairs. I can bring it up.
He's really the star of the show.
Every time. There's a time and place, right?
Yes.
So I'm obviously on my end, this is something on top of my mind day in, day out as we're working every single day. I kind of give Josh some feedback of with uncertainty it's very hard for departments both to move forward. And we realized that hoping that the select boards of both towns will give us a direction to work towards. I think everyone, both in Hinesburg and myself, want to work towards a common goal, whatever that goal is put forward. And so I brought up one of the Essex town and junction, and when they separated their municipal debacle. I don't know what exactly the right words for that. When they separated that system out and how they built their police department, being that one municipality was the lead municipality going forward, whichever it might be A or B, whoever that chooses, and then building a system that supports both towns or both systems equally. As a model we could even work towards if that's where the select boards want to go. But I think really the biggest feedback was if we get direction, we can start working as employees to achieve that goal.
It's great.
Okay, so Bird.
One other question. So Josh, we've had a lot of conversations over time, but not any recent conversations, at least between select boards. So do we have any sense of how Hinesburg, either town manager or select board, is looking at this?
Sure, in talking with our town manager, this topic's on their agenda for their meeting on Wednesday night. I anticipate a similar interest and outcome from their board to kind of reconvene that committee and start some discussions.
Awesome. And last time around, the two representatives from over there were the chair, and I happen to know that the vice chair is out of town on vacation, but obviously they would have to designate two people.
Yeah, I think, I'm trying to pull it up here and see who their two are, but yeah, Todd, their town manager, is aware of that, and he would talk with their select board about if they keep it the same, or has membership changed or interest changed, and who would represent their committee.
Well, speaking as one member of this board and not as ex-cathedra chair, I think this is a good idea to reawaken this committee. And I have no question with Bard and David being our representatives. They're both very knowledgeable in this. When we first started this, June Heston, who was on the board, was our police expert, but when she left the board, it became these two. But before I throw them under the bus, how do you two feel about being on that committee?
I don't mind continuing, but I want to open it up to Adam and Caitlin to see if they're interested.
I don't think I know enough yet to sort of for everyone.
Completely comfortable and happy with you two doing it. I imagine any big decisions come back and we're all aware and. I also agree that it's time to, I think it's time to get that committee up and going again, I guess, sounds like we need to we have some semblance of a shared goal between the towns, but we need to get the committee to formalize that and send it back to the select boards or towns to really formally recognize and make sure we're all, the committee and then both supporting bodies are on the same page. Will put us in a stronger position to really drive towards that goal.
So, Josh, is it your sense that we would need a motion to reawaken this? The committee already technically exists, we just simply haven't scheduled a meeting.
We haven't met for a while, so as long as you guys are good with David and Bard continuing on the committee. Then we'll, once Hinesburg makes a decision, if they have a similar decision, we'll start to coordinate a time for that meeting. I'd encourage you to attend that meeting as well, provide some feedback from the officers. And and then we'll kind of come back to the board as we have updates.
Awesome.
That's great. Caitlin, have you met Duke?
Oh, yes, I have. I have.
Whenever we discuss police staffing, it's always like, well, don't forget Duke. So,
My daughter met Duke before I did, but I.
okay, well, thanks for coming tonight. We appreciate the input. Okay. Next, I'm keeping on the chat. Nothing's popped up. The next item on the agenda is a direct follow-up to the prior one, consideration of approving an update agreement. Okay, consideration of approving an update to the agreement for shared police chief services with Hinesburg and an optional executive session should that be deemed necessary. The agreement that we had actually expired last summer, but we continued operating, both towns continued operating as if it were in place. The current agreement is a public document, and this is really just an update to ensure we have an active ingredient. If we have anything we want to discuss about the agreement, we would need to go into executive session as it would be considered a negotiation with Hinesburg. But other than that,
Yeah, and I'd hope to have a draft update for you guys this evening, but I don't. Unfortunately, I got it to our letter last week and it didn't give me enough time, I think, frankly, to get it ready for today. I did discuss with Todd Odit, manager in Hinesburg, about the fee. It was currently at $6,500, which is essentially to split the total compensation for the chief since they're an interim chief. He recalculated to $5,210. I think probably makes sense with, a little less salary for the interim chief. So that's what they're proposing. I should have a draft agreement later this week. They're going to talk about it Wednesday night. And if both boards are generally in favor of it, we'll probably come back April 7th. And hopefully have a quick approval.
So Jay Bardigan, so that makes sense to me. It strikes me that this is also could be a topic of conversation for the intertown committee. Like, are we happy with the details of the contract? Is anything missing or the agreement? That is a place where you'd sort of nail down what authorities, responsibilities, and obligations exist across the towns. People talked about, well, what if we want something and we aren't getting it? So ostensibly you can build elements in there. So I don't want to stand in the way or slow it down, but it could be also a topic of conversation if we're talking about negotiations or discussions. And it would be my bias also that since this is it's sort of contracting for services that in a sense, while it's a contract, it's not really personnel, which is kind of more behind the curtain. So unless I'm missing something, I'd be inclined not to treat it as executive session, but just we'll talk about it.
right, we have a draft motion for approving the agreement, which we don't have. So we would just move on unless anybody has if any members of the public would like to chime in or any members of the board have further thoughts. Okay. Moving on to something completely different. The FEMA Hazard Mitigation Grant Program. The town has to approve applications for home buyouts as part of the FEMA Hazard Mitigation Grant Program. Part of the reason is that home buyouts result with an undeveloped green space where the house was. And some municipalities have been reluctant to approve them all because of the impact on their grant list. Berrytown was one that had a lot of applications and they did not approve them all. The owners of 44 Old Brooklyn Court and 2468 Cochrane Road have completed applications for home buyouts. Actually, that's one, right? It says once, no, that's two. I'm
Well,
sorry.
there's two different
I'm being
ones.
dense.
Sorry, I'm.
Once the process is complete, the houses would be removed and the town will own the lots, which will be kept as undeveloped green spaces. In a previous select board meeting, we voted to support buyout and elevation applications. So a list of all the properties interested in the buyout program is included in the packet.
And I've also got in the interim, I was able to update, or Duncan was able to update the map. So I think this is helpful just as a visual of where are the properties located.
I think it's really helpful.
Yeah. So this is a list here at the bottom of all properties interested. Green is buyout, blue is elevation, which you might note if you're paying attention. Last time we reviewed this, there was probably 5 or 6 that were interested in elevation. I will in a minute. Most have changed over to the buyout application. So we're seeing more of the buyout options and less of the folks that want to elevate. This here is a map of just south of the Winooski River. So this is the old Brown Court one, or Old Broken Court, which is on the agenda for this evening. Up here, let's see, can I zoom in a little bit more? Which road is this? This is Johnny Brook.
Yeah.
And then this is really the
Esplanade,
core of the village, so Esplanade and Bridge Street, which, as we all know, every time we get flooding, that is one of the key spots that gets hit. This here is Snipe Island Road. As you remember, we had a lot of flooding in the Lily Pond Circle area here at the bottom of Snipe Island, especially in the 24 flood. And then over here is the Jones Mill area. We actually have one of these. It's already been approved. I think it's this one right here.
That whole area was underwater.
Yes, it was very, very flooded. And those two that are interesting is these aren't from the Winooski. These are from the brooks coming down from the mountains.
Yeah.
Especially in well, actually, I shouldn't say that. I think Jones Mill is a little bit of both. They get the Winooski coming this way. They get the brook coming down. They kind of get it between both.
And I'll just point out, the brook is actually a culvert.
Yes.
Exiting from under the highway. For those of you who haven't been there to see it, it's mostly a trickle until it's not.
Oh,
And then it's a torrent.
and there's one more box down here at the bottom over on Cochrane Road. One buyout and one elevation. The elevation looks quite large. It's just a larger parcel there, I think.
But that's at the bottom of Greystone.
Yeah, more towards the bottom of Greystone area.
Okay.
I move to apply for property buyout program for 44 Old Brooklyn Court and 2468 Cochrane Road.
Thank you, Adam.
Jay, this is David, a second.
Okay, we have a motion from Adam Wood, seconded by David Sander, to apply for the property buyout program for 44 Old Brooklyn Court and 2468 Cochrane Road. Is there any discussion?
The one thing I'll say, and this maybe belongs at the end of the meeting about future topics, sort of. Let's assume that FEMA follows through and buyouts are complete. That's if these actually follow through and are executed. At some point, the town will have to make some decisions, anything we want to do with that green space other than plant grass, presumably.
Right, I think Kara LaBounty told us that we could put benches in and we could put playground equipment in.
We put in shared garden space kind of stuff.
That's an example that
Yeah.
might be
There's a ton of, I mean, if these do all go through, we might have the potential to do like shared garden space and a park. I mean, there's a lot of land adjacent to the existing green.
A lot of that would depend on the condition of the property after the demolition.
And the elevation.
In the past, we have not been able to use communal gardens because of brownfield contaminations, broken glass, metal shards.
Lead paint residue.
Yeah.
So those are wrinkles.
Lead paint's not an issue for a playground though.
It's fine.
I mean, I'll say if there really is like concerns with that, we've demoed houses and rebuilt and none of those have been a concern, so I would say that if those are a concern when the demo is done, that the demo is in fact not done.
Right.
So.
I think it's more relevant to gardening, right?
Yeah, I mean,
heavy metals in your tomatoes.
What's an acceptable level is not an acceptable level when you're eating the food.
Heavy tomatoes, another great name for a rock.
Tomatoes, but essentially we could put anything in there that we're fine with having flooding and.
That's the basic idea. There are some specific rules from FEMA when you get the buyout application or the deed, essentially. There's certain things you can and can't do. So I think it's actually a little more strict than our floodplain regulations. But but there's guidance from
Well,
FEMA.
Tyler was on the call. Tyler, do you have any knowledge on this? Mr. Masha.
Yeah, sorry about that. I wasn't expecting you to ask me anything on that, so I was just trying to unmute myself. So, yeah, so I didn't, this is obviously me not having prepared any remarks on this, whatsoever. But my general understanding is that once it is bought, the property is bought and demoed, you really can't do anything with it other than leave it green space or put a parking. You couldn't put a parking area provided it is not a paved parking area. So you could put gravel, things like that. That being said, as far as putting new structures down in the park, I know they are in the process of updating the flood hazard overlay district regulations right now. I think you guys have a public meeting about that on the 7th of April, if my memory serves me. It is worth pointing out that you would have to look at and make sure that what they're proposing there, those changes would allow you to potentially put, playground equipment in there if that is something that you're generally trying to do. As far as a community garden goes, I haven't really considered that, to be honest with you. I mean, obviously that might be one we might have to look at and see if there's appetite for it and see what we can kind of do. I do know that most of the properties that are on Esplanade that are there are actually in the floodplain, not the floodway, which tends to make things a lot easier. Kind of the demarcation of where the floodplain ends and where the floodway is basically kind of where that hill is, where the elevation portion of Esplanade, kind of where it drops down to Volunteers Green. That is kind of roughly where the floodway starts. And why that matters is the floodway is the most regulatorily intense thing you have. You really can't do much, if anything, in the floodway. Floodplain is a little different. So for those who don't know, floodway is basically water where you have current, essentially. So the concern is by putting structures and things in the way there, they could become obstructions for trees and other debris that are floating down the river that will catch on it and then potentially cause hazards further down the line, which is why they don't like to have things in there. But yeah, I mean, we could certainly look at that. It would be very case dependent, depending on, what was proposed, but I could look into it if there's appetite for it.
On the FEMA's phase 4 open space management for buyout properties, it says federal law requires the property acquired under the hazard mitigation grant program must be forever dedicated and maintained as open space. Consequently, the only structures your community may build on the property are those that are compatible with open space uses, such as structures open on all sides, such as picnic shelters, kiosks, and refreshment stands. And then it goes on to say you can also build other recreational structures such as, no, it gets confusing. Yeah, so basically you can build.
Well, and what gets more confusing is that we have to remember, right? Just because FEMA lets you do something doesn't mean our regs let you do something, which is part of the regs. Yes, you can, and you are actually actively in the process of doing that. But just pointing out is that the way the layer goes, it goes. FEMA sets the floor, we build on top of it, but ultimately we are the ones who enforce our floodplain regs, and they can be much stricter than FEMA's, and ours currently are, at least the ones that are in effect.
So Jay, I didn't mean to start the discussion of the topic. I meant to identify the topic for preparation and a future discussion, because it's not actually warned here either.
You're absolutely right.
I just meant it to be something we will have to take up. I will also say these are in a process of buyout. They have not completed buyout, as I understand it.
Right.
So to quote, I think it was Samuel Clemens who said, "Rumors of my demise are greatly exaggerated." They aren't bought out yet.
Yeah.
So I think it's premature to talk, it seems.
About what we're gonna put there.
Do you think it makes sense to have that discussion before the buyout, or do you think it's uncertain enough that we would wait until it's confirmed?
I think just emotionally for the residents involved, it would seem to me we should do it afterwards. I don't.
That makes sense.
Like, I don't want to be, here's your hat, what's your hurry kind of conversation. I think we should wait until people have made their decisions, whatever they are, and then we react to them afterwards.
And knowing that people can pull out right up until they close, it would be, we don't want to at any point pressure someone into selling their house.
Right. Okay, so the motion before us is to apply for the property buyout program for 44 Old Brookman Court and 2468 Cochrane Road. Absent any further discussion, please state your name and your vote.
Adam, I.
Caitlin, I.
Bart, aye.
David, I.
And Jay, aye. Okay. Everybody's favorite topic, ethics, is coming up. The statewide municipal ethics policy went into effect on January 1, 2025. However, this policy did not cover all Richmond town employees and volunteers, and it did not have a complaints and enforcement section. We are allowed under state law to make policies that are more stringent or more specific than the state policy. We cannot lessen the state policy. So working with our attorneys, Josh has modified the town policy. Josh, you want to tell us about it?
Sure. So we added verbiage to make it so that it applies to all town employees and all volunteers so that we don't have two different ethics policies. I think it's gonna be a lot cleaner to have one policy that everybody follows. We also included the incompatibility of offices section from the Richmond town policy, which was not included in the statewide policy, and the complaint and enforcement sections. And talking to the ethics committee, they didn't include complaint and enforcement sort of by design, because each town, each municipality is a little bit different of how they're going to handle complaints and enforcements. So I took the section that we had in our previous policy, added it to this one with some changes from our attorneys to make it consistent throughout. We also added a section detailing the training requirements and annual review of the policy. Even though that's sort of explained on the state website, I wanted to make sure that our employees and volunteers knew the expectations of when the training is to be completed, when they're supposed to review the policy, when they're supposed to sign the form and get it back to Duncan and myself. And Duncan and I talked about, you know, if it's getting up to August 21st, 31st as the deadline, and people don't have it back, we'll send them an email that says, you can't go to your next committee meeting until you get us this information, to try to be even more stringent on it. I think in the past, I think last year was our best year, and we still only got maybe a little over half policies signed. So I think it's a chance to be a little more strict about it.
Okay, questions, comments? The in the packet is a copy of the policy with tracked changes and a clean version. Has anybody any questions or comments about the policy as it's been amended to read?
I'll just say thanks for doing this. I find it helpful to see both these markup and clean copy.
Yeah,
sure.
Okay.
Jay, this is David. I move to approve the Code of Ethics policy.
Thank you, David.
Is Bart, I will second that.
And we have a motion from David Sanders, seconded by Bart Hill, to approve the Code of Ethics policy. Please state your name and your vote.
Adam, I.
Caitlin, I.
Bart, aye.
David, I.
And Jay, aye.
So I just want to point out, this is a great first step, but now the town needs to ensure that everybody reads it, signs it, and then third leg it stool is we will hold people to account to follow it.
That's correct.
And take the training.
And take the training. And people need to understand that the state policy is more stringent than most town policies on this topic have been. For example, the appearance of impropriety, the appearance of potential ethical violations is treated quite seriously. In the past, there has been kind of an attitude of, well, technically speaking, we don't want technically speaking, we want people to err on the side of caution.
Gee, I think that's really well stated. Historically, was there a real conflict of interest? And that was the debate versus the potential appearance of a conflict of interest, which then calls people out to recognize that and publicly state it.
Mm-hmm.
And then reach a conclusion it really is or it really isn't, and what action people are going to take as a result. But in that sense, I think it's what's the saying that sunshine is the
best disinfectant.
Disinfectant. That's sort of the idea here, that disclose things, even if it's possible. You may not think it's a conflict, but if it has potential appearance of conflict, that's really what it calls out for.
Mm-hmm.
If nothing else, or it's a conversation.
Yes.
Yep. The next item on our agenda is consideration of approving the use of funds from the Town Center and Library Reserve Fund to fill holes in the library's foundation to prevent mice from entering the building.
Well, I don't have a problem with this, but I just want to point out that we're not going to stop mice from entering the building.
Yeah, probably. It's part of a larger battle being waged against the rodent infestation at times. They do have early pest control, which comes by and does, standard stuff every couple of weeks, every couple of months to kind of look at the mice and take care of things. I think that upon inspection, noticed there were some holes that they could fill with various like mortar or different foam and things like that. So I think for $500, give it a shot. Maybe it'll help. I'm not really sure how many mice they're seeing over there, but Suzanne has recommended this next step and probably worth seeing if it helps.
Other thoughts?
I have a similar battle every fall, not spring.
They really come in when it rains and they love salted
Yeah.
peanut butter.
Yeah, the fall is definitely the worst. I'm looking for that warm.
I have a zealous set of employees at my house with tails and
I heard that
Mine
you
don't
could
do
put
that.
owl houses around your property and encourage
There you
the
go.
owls to be.
okay, do we have a motion?
Janice is able to move to approve the use of $500 from the Town Center and Library Reserve Fund to pay for the cost of filling holes in the library's foundation to prevent mice from entering the building.
Thank you, David.
Caitlin will second that.
Okay, we have a second from Caitlin Filkins.
I just have a follow-up question. I haven't looked closely at the foundation over there.
Mhm.
What kind of holes are there? I mean, is this stone?
It's the oldest building in town.
So with a stone foundation, it would need to be repointed among other things, right?
It seems like it's a good point. What holes are we filling the stone foundation for $500 that are going to remain permanently filled?
Having repointed a stone foundation before, $500 a point.
It was like days. And
Um,
the mice watched you do it.
I guess I would encourage them to do it. We've approved it.
Oh, we haven't
We haven't
approved it.
voted on.
If we're going to fill the holes, it seems like we would do it in a manner that's
I have a better idea.
semi-permanent.
We dig a moat.
I thought you were gonna say buy a cat.
Libraries have cats sometimes.
Okay.
That's my only question, and I am not questioning anybody's judgment, but recognizing that the sort of building maintenance has some level of expertise, what is the actual intervention, and is it the right intervention for the right problem in that foundation?
Yeah.
That's my only question. And I can't really tell.
Okay, so we have a motion from David Sanders, seconded by Caitlin Filkins to approve the use of $500 from the Town Center and Library Reserve Fund to pay for the cost of filling holes to keep mice out. Any further discussion?
One more question, I guess it'd be a question about this and then moving forward, is this part of like a broader pest management plan?
Yeah, they have an annual plan with Early, as is this building where they come in, set traps,
Okay,
do your normal stuff.
all right. Make me confident that it's a good choice.
Okay, please state your name and your vote.
Adam, I.
Caitlin, aye.
Bart abstain.
David,
J.I. Okay, motion passes 4-2 and I abstain. Okay, our next item is consideration of using funds from the Town Center and Library Reserve Fund to boost town Wi-Fi on the 3rd floor of the town center. The town does have Wi-Fi, but when we're up here, we have been using the Wi-Fi from Mountain Mansfield. We've been using the Wi-Fi from Mount Mansfield Community Television. MMC TV has requested the town provide Wi-Fi on the 3rd floor so that they're not paying for Wi-Fi for everybody. We've received an $891.32 quote from Simple Route, our IT vendors, to install 2 access points on the 3rd floor. This does not include cabling. We have a quote for the cabling that would be a maximum of $1,250. The pathway from the server to the upstairs could be tricky and may require a lot of work and material. The current balance of the Town Center and Library Reserve Fund is $342,490, but that includes the $41,500 that was approved at the last meeting for new locks at the Town Center, which have not been installed yet. Questions, comments about Wi-Fi?
Jay, this is David. I move to approve the use of $2,141.31 from the town center and library reserve fund to pay for the cost of installing equipment for better Wi-Fi service on the third floor of the town center.
Do we have a second?
Adam, second.
We have a motion from David Sanders, seconded by Adam Wood, to approve the use of $2,141.31 from the town center and library reserve fund to pay for the cost of installing equipment for better Wi-Fi service on the third floor of the town center. Prior to the vote, I would like to disclose that I am president of the MMC TV board, and so I will not be casting, I'll be abstaining from this vote. Any further discussion? Okay, please state your name and your vote.
Adam, I.
Caitlin, I.
Bard, aye.
David, I.
Jay abstain. Okay. Next, consideration of accepting USDA Emergency Watershed Protection Grant for flood mitigation at 8 privately owned parcels. Josh?
So this is the EWP program, which we've spoken about after the 2023 flood and after 2024. It's a program that mostly protects private structures, but the money has to come through the town. We are currently working on 2 sites from the 2023 flood that have been approved, and we're moving forward with those for the engineering. We have 8 additional sites that were approved for the EWP program after the 2024 flood. And right now we're looking to kind of accept that grant and then move forward. We will be working with each individual homeowner to make sure that they do want to move forward. There's a 25% match that would be paid for by the homeowner. We have our attorneys drawing up paperwork that each homeowner would have to sign to say that they'll pay for that match. And then once all that's in place, there might be a couple that drop out. I've already heard a few that said that maybe they don't want to move forward with this, in which case we can just remove them even after we've accepted the money. The interesting thing is, if somebody backs out, that money sort of stays in the Richmond pot. So if somebody else's property goes over, there's some more money to pay for that. It's really, yeah, it's a little weird the way they the way this program is awarded and managed. It gets a little challenging, I think, to track some of the funds at times, but we'll do it. So right now the motion is to approve accepting the grant, and then we'll move forward with those agreements with the homeowners. We won't do anything with the contractor until we have those agreements in place. And that's when you really have to back out until they, in this round, the EWP program is actually doing all of the engineering for the towns. The last round, we had to go out to bid and find an engineer. So homeowners have until, I think, we hire a contractor to pull out.
Okay, questions, comments, concerns, ideas?
Move to accept the USDA Emergency Watershed Protection Grant with the understanding that the 25% match will be the responsibility of the homeowners who the grant benefits. And then to name town manager Josh Arneson as the duly authorized representative.
Okay, thank you, Adam. Second, do we have a second?
Caitlin, one second.
Okay, we have a motion from Adam Wood, seconded by Caitlin Filkins, to accept the USDA Emergency Watershed Protection Grant with the understanding that the 25% match will be the responsibility of the homeowners who the grant benefits, and to name town manager Josh Arneson as the duly authorized representative. Mr. Hill.
It's something that I'm used to asking in my other career, sort of, is if there is an admin fee or.
Yeah, I think there's, I forget what the percentage is, but
To cover the cost of town.
yeah, so like,
FEMA works and all that.
yeah, we can, I forget exactly what the fee is, but there is a way that we track that, submit for that, and then we'll get paid back.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Seeing no further discussion, please state your name and your vote.
Adam, I.
Caitlin, I.
Bard, aye.
David, I.
And Jay, aye. Okay. We have an item on the agenda relating to appointing a select board member to the committee that will be working on the town plan. The planning commission is creating a subcommittee for work on the official town plan. It's going to last for at least a year while the plan is being worked on, and they expect to meet at least once per month. Each member is responsible for reviewing documents for each meeting and providing feedback. The committee will also facilitate gathering public input for the plan. And the thought is that a select board member might or should be a member of this. So we are looking for discussion on whether a member of the select board would like to be the select board's representative to this town plan committee.
Just as you introduced the topic, Jay, one comment that I've run into this before where people sometimes think if there's one select board member on this group, they represent the rest of the select board. And of course, I rush to say that is not true. Because you can't make a decision for the select board except in a public meeting where you make a decision. So that's just the only, in some ways that's freeing because nobody has to represent the other four.
It's more of a liaison or
Yeah.
just to keep the select board in the loop within, not inside knowledge, but direct knowledge of the process.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I'll volunteer to do it. I enjoy that committee, although it's changed. I could not enjoy it now. Seems like it's a well-led and productive committee. Be great to be a part of that.
And just, so it's gonna be a subcommittee of the planning, but probably some planning commission members as well, and members of the general public.
Imagine Virginia would be providing well thought out material for the committee at minimum, if not part of the subcommittee.
I think that's a safe assumption.
And it's a big deal. I mean, there's a lot in it.
This is kind of the subcommittee that would drive the town for the next
8 years.
8 years, right?
Okay, now we have one volunteer, but I don't want to. Does anybody else want to put their head in the ring?
So glad they withdraw if someone else volunteer.
I feel like Adam is the best person for that. Yeah.
Mr. Clark, I move to appoint Adam Wood to the subcommittee for the development of the Richmond Town Plan.
And we have a motion by Bart Hill, seconded by David Sander, to appoint Adam Wood to the subcommittee for the development of the Richmond Town Plan. Please state your name and your vote.
Adam, abstain.
Caitlin, aye.
Or not.
David, aye.
Jay, aye. Next, this is the really important one. This Water and Sewer Commission is made up of 5 members. 2 have to be customers. 3 have to be members of the select board. The members of the select board who are on the Water and Sewer Commission do not need to be customers. I am not, but I'm on the commission. Lisa Miller had been serving on the Water and Sewer Commission in one of the 3 seats. Save for select board members, Lisa is no longer a select board member. So we need to appoint somebody. Bart and I are already on it, so we can't be on it twice. So that means that David, Adam, or Caitlin has the opportunity for wielding the true power in this town.
That's where all the fun stuff happens.
It is actually fascinating stuff, but
I know just from a scheduling like mechanics of making it to that meeting standpoint, the 6 o'clock start with kids and stuff is probably a no-go.
Well, sometimes it's a 5:30 start.
Even better.
It's so funny you say that because I saw you picking up your kids
At
just as.
5:30. I was actually waiting for them. So if it had started at 5:30, I would have been 15 minutes late just picking the kids up.
Yes.
So, I don't.
so Caitlin, this is, we don't want to, I'm sure David would love to do it, but he doesn't want to hog it. Would you like?
I'm committed to this. Let's get this under my feet and then we can decide if there's more committees. I would love to participate at some point, but I'd like to get my feet bared here if
This is
you're
just
interested.
until the annual meeting.
That's correct.
Which is May.
May.
Maybe in a couple of months.
Are you willing to do it?
Let's get on the schedule.
Okay, David has agreed to fill the gap until the annual meeting and we will revisit the question then.
I move to appoint David Sander to fill the vacant seat on the Water and Sewer Commission.
Caitlin, I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion from Adam Wood, seconded by Caitlin Filkins, to appoint David Sander to fill the vacant seat on the Water and Sewer Commission. Please state your name and your vote.
Adam, aye.
Caitlin, aye.
Bart, aye. David abstain.
Jay, aye. Welcome back.
This is Monday nights.
I think, yeah. Okay, our next item is consideration of appointing 2 select board members to review amendments to financial policies prior to review by the entire select board. Finance Director Connie Bona, who was with us earlier but is not now, is working on updating the bank rec and purchasing policies. In the past, we've found it helpful to have a couple of select board members review draft policies and suggest changes prior to the policies coming to the full board. So this is making suggestions, this is copy editing, this is exactly what it says.
Yeah, I would be interested in.
What's the? I think I reviewed this last year, but I don't remember that there was a few different things. What was the magnitude of, like, how many pages are we talking about? We're talking like 2 or 20?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Yeah, and we did start this process last year. I think Lisa helped
Yeah,
review
Lisa did.
some. We never really got either one of these to fruition. I think that the purchasing, let's make sure I'm looking at the right ones. The purchasing policy is only like 5-ish pages. The bank reconciliation, I haven't reviewed that much recently, but I don't think it's 20. I think it's closer to that 5 or 6 realm.
And what's our timeline of like meeting these?
I think we'd like to do it in the next few weeks if possible.
But there's no specific deadline either.
No, I mean, we're trying to get them sort of updated. Yeah, there's not, I mean, if it
It's not
dropped down a little
It's
bit.
not a hard deadline.
No, it's not like a statutory, you have to have
Within
it
a month
done.
would be ideal.
That, yeah, I think within a month would be great, yeah.
Okay, Adam, am I sensing interest on your part?
Yeah, I mean, I can.
Okay, well, we have Caitlin and Adam volunteering.
Say no.
Do we need a motion?
You don't have to have a motion. I
Okay.
think we got those two.
That,
We're good.
or will you just, someone will email it to us?
Yeah, we'll probably email it to you and then some, if you want to sit down with Connie with any questions, I might jump in on that too, and then we'll sort of go from there.
Sounds good.
Okay, great.
Okay, moving on. It is currently 8:51 PM and despite this being a very long agenda, we only have
Oh, wow.
We're moving right along.
one more item on the agenda plus the usual administrative stuff, plus possibly some executive session. So we're actually ahead of schedule.
Well done.
Hey,
I'll be back with you.
Oh, thank you.
oh, awesome.
Okay. For executive sessions.
So the select board has accepted Mr. Doug Patey's, or I apologize if I mispronounced that,
Correct.
offer to provide a needs assessment of the fire department pro bono. Patey has completed his report. The fire department typically has a training or a meeting on Monday evenings, so the chief and members would not be able to attend a regular select board meeting. There are no fire department activities planned for Monday, March 31st. Town manager Josh Arneson suggests we hold a special meeting to review the report on Monday, March 31st. Patey has indicated that he is available to attend this meeting as well. Thoughts?
Just to restate this, Doug Patey is my father, just to put that on the table.
Talked to a bunch of the members and just to encourage them to attend this meeting, one, and then to reiterate that we are consciously doing it on a Monday, that they don't have training or maintenance or a meeting to specifically to facilitate them being here. And it's also a day of the week that often they kind of, their schedules are almost every Monday they have something. So it's kind of blocked out already. So I've really reiterated that people have either not cared in 1 or 2 instances, but mostly they're appreciative and it sounds like they want to show up. So
Here?
good time to schedule it.
Here?
I think here's fine, yeah,
Time?
7 PM.
I think 7 works. That's the same as fire training. It's the same as our schedule. So for consistency.
How long?
Until it's over.
4 hours, 5 hours?
Now, do you guys have a typical, are there specific snacks that they expect to see at these meetings?
Oh man, they don't really have snacks. It's just like leftover Halloween candy or people bring stuff down, but
Oh,
it'd be a pretty snack-free environment over there.
I would think maybe we budget what, like 2 hours, just knowing there could, it's a fairly long report.
It's a long
There's a
report. I
lot
think
to
that there's-
discuss.
I mean, ideally, there'd be a lot of different input too, so
Yeah.
2 hours would be good.
That way it allows for more conversation.
Let the minutes note that police officer Duke has joined us here in the meeting room and all order and decorum has gone out the window.
You heard about the snacks.
yeah.
Okay, we need a motion and a second on this.
Jay, this is David. I move to hold a special meeting on Monday, March 31st, 2025 to review the needs assessment report for the fire department. And this meeting will be at 7:00 PM at the town center.
Okay, do we have a second?
Adam, second?
Okay, we have a motion from David Sanders, seconded by Adam Wood, to hold a special meeting on Monday, March 31st, 2025 at 7 PM to review the needs assessment report for the fire department.
He sniffed Bard's pocket and then sat.
Okay, please state your name and your vote.
Adam, I.
Should I abstain from this?
You can.
Up to you.
Okay, Caitlin, abstain.
Bard, aye.
David, I.
Jay, aye. Okay. Moving on to minutes, purchase orders and warrants. The minutes of March 3rd, 2025 need approval. I assume you've all had a chance to look at them. Are there any changes you'd like to see made before we approve them?
Jay, this is David. I move to approve the minutes of the March 3rd meeting.
Okay, do we have a second?
Adam, second.
Okay, we have a motion from David Sanders, seconded by Adam Wood to approve the minutes of March 3rd. Please state your name and your vote.
Adam, aye.
Caitlin abstain.
All right.
David, I.
And Jay, aye.
Yet, so.
Purchase orders first.
Okay, next, we're gonna go on to purchase orders. We have, I believe, 3.
Yes. Jay, this is David. I move to approve purchase order number 5233 to NE Consulting Engineers for engineering for the Emergency Watershed Protection Program in an amount not to exceed $22,000.
Adam, second.
Okay, we have a motion for David Sanders, seconded by Adam Wood, to approve purchase order 5233 to NE Consulting Engineers for engineering for the Emergency Watershed Protection Program in the amount of $22,000. Please state your name and your vote.
Adam, aye.
Caitlin, aye.
Bart, aye.
David, I.
Jay, aye.
Jay, I move to approve purchase order number 5235 to the Hinesburg Police Department for police coverage for the month of February 2025 in an amount not to exceed $22,467.50.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Adam, second.
Okay, we have a motion from David Sanders, seconded by Adam Wood, to approve purchase order 5235 to the Hinesburg Police Department for police coverage in February 2025 and the amount of $22,467.50. Please state your name and your vote.
Adam, aye.
Caitlin, aye.
Bart, aye.
David, I.
Jay, aye.
Jay, I move to approve purchase order number 5237 to the Hinesburg Police Department for police coverage from March through June 2025 in an amount not to exceed $106,000.
Adam, second.
We have a motion for David Sanders, seconded by Adam Wood, to approve purchase order 5237 to the Hinesburg Police Department for police coverage from March to June 2025 and the amount of $106,000.
To note that this is a PO going out ahead of the coverage. So
Why is that
we
happening?
step in the right direction. Small incremental changes. Eventually will be perfect.
I would also note
Dig on you, Josh.
No, I was fine.
that, you know, if it were after the fact and all those zeros always get my attention, how did it come out exactly
Yes.
80,000?
Yes.
So it's not that those are actual expenses, it's not to exceed.
It's projected.
One of my estimate, yeah.
Still note that the last time I had this conversation, when I was 24, 25, and was told that if you do any work without a PO, you will immediately be fired. And then the same person promptly told me, you need to get it done. It doesn't matter what you did. I was like, that's gonna mean doing work without a PO. I said, just don't write a PO, just kind of tell them that they're gonna get a PO. Great. It's a great,
That was clear.
great. Director of engineering there.
Okay, so
All right.
you made the motion, Adam seconded, is that right?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, we have a motion from David Sanders, seconded by Adam Wood, to approve purchase order 5237. I already read all this. For the Hinesburg Police Department for March to June 2025 coverage in an amount not to exceed $106,000. Please state your name and your vote.
Adam, aye.
Caitlin, aye.
Bart, aye.
David, I.
And Jay, aye. Last, before we possibly move on to executive sessions, are there any questions about the warrants as you've got them in your packet?
Jay, this is David. Move to approve the warrants as presented.
Adam, second.
We have a motion for David Sanders, seconded by Adam Wood, to approve the warrants as presented. Okay, please state your name and your vote.
Adam, aye.
Caitlin, aye.
Bart, aye.
David, I.
And Jay, aye. Okay, our agenda closes with a couple of executive sessions, but before that, let's discuss items for the next agenda. What items do we have for the next agenda that people would like to put on our radar?
I have a small one. We had talked about changing the name of the Town Center and Library Committee to just the Town Center Committee. Seems like we have a clear separate governance structure for the library, and their requests, their building is in a different spot, and their requests come straight to the board, which makes sense with their established governance structure. And so having the Town Center and Library Committee have some semblance of oversight doesn't seem to make sense when they have a separate board already doing that.
Mhm.
And that would allow us, I mean, I think it would be a more symbolic change, but it would refocus the goal of the committee to someone looking at it really on this building. And I guess we could still extrapolate that to the surrounding grounds, but that building is maintained.
We also would like to potentially hear back from the Joint Committee on Police Governance, if that should happen, and also review the agreement for shared police services, which we were going to hope to vote on tonight, but wasn't ready yet. Any other thoughts?
Our next meeting is 3 weeks from now, correct?
Yeah,
So it would be
Good note.
reasonable to have our,
Well, we'll have the special meeting on March 31st, but
I'm thinking of, sorry, what were the two documents we're reviewing, the
the
reconciliation?
financial policies.
if we can get them by then,
Yeah,
that'd be great.
so that is probably
Yeah.
doable.
That's fine.
And then,
2.5 weeks before we gotta do it.
Sounds great.
and we will have.
I'm gonna do it before that.
Yeah, it's just two policies, so hopefully it's not too long. We will have the hearing on the flood hazard overlay district zoning amendments. And we will likely hear back from UMIAC about re-upping their ramp usage or stairs that they have over Rockers. We do a 1-year agreement with them, so updating that to come back to the board next week or April 7th.
Okay,
Should we have some kind of follow-up from the special?
Yeah.
Report meeting, even though it's just an update.
okay, and possibly hearing from any frogs or salamanders who might want to attend.
Maybe get one to model like reflective vest.
That's right, yeah. And then the monorail.
Yeah.
Monorail.
Of course, every meeting, monorail spot is reserved.
That would work. It's an ongoing joke. Did you know the Simpsons episode about the monorail?
No.
Okay, we got another person who's not gonna get our references.
I'll research it. It wasn't on the documents.
Y'all gonna watch this?
Those are the written rules.
Okay,
Wasn't the forms.
in your packet, we have details about 2 executive sessions. For anybody watching this later, executive sessions have to be for a particular purpose. And we cannot discuss business in an executive session that is not directly related to the stated purpose for that meeting. So since we have 2 tonight, we're in the situation of having one, coming back out, and then moving to go back in to the next one. That's just how it works. So,
It's funky because it's got 2 parts. I move to find that premature public knowledge of the evaluation of an employee would cause the town or the person to suffer substantial disadvantage.
This is David, I'll second.
okay, we have a motion from Adam Wood, seconded by David Sander, to move to find that premature public knowledge about the evaluation of an employee would cause a town or person to suffer a substantial disadvantage. Please state your name and your vote.
Adam,
Caitlin, I.
Bart, aye. David, aye.
And Jay, aye.
Okay, this is David. I move that we enter into executive session to discuss the evaluation of an employee under the provisions of 1 VSA 313A3 and to invite town manager Josh Arneson into the executive session.
Adam, second.
Okay, we have a motion from David Sanders, seconded by Adam Wood, to enter into executive session to discuss the evaluation of an employee under the provisions of 1 VSA 313A3 and to invite town manager Josh Arneson into the executive session. Please state your name and your vote.
Adam,
Caitlin, I.
Bart, aye. David, aye.
And Jay, aye. We are in executive session. Okay, so we are returning from executive session and we have motions for a connected executive session on a different topic.
Jenny, this is David. I don't have my glasses on. I move to find the premature public knowledge about the evaluation of a public officer that would cause the town or person to suffer a substantial disadvantage.
Okay, we have a second.
Bart, I'll second that.
We have a motion from David Sanders, seconded by Bart Hill, to move to find that premature public knowledge about the evaluation of a public officer would cause the town or person to suffer a substantial disadvantage. Please state your name and your vote.
Adam,
Caitlin, I.
Bart, aye. David, aye.
Jay, aye.
Jay, I move that we enter into executive session to discuss the evaluation of a public officer under the provisions of one VSA 313A3 and to invite town manager Josh Arneson into the executive session.
This is Bart, I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion for David Sanders, seconded by Bart Hill, moving that we enter into executive session to discuss the evaluation of a public officer under the provisions of one VSA 313A3 and to invite town manager Josh Arneson into the executive session. Please state your name and your vote.
Adam, I.
Caitlin, I.
Bart, aye.
David, I.
Jay, aye. Okay, we're going into executive session.
Motion.
We have a motion to adjourn from David Sander. Any second?
Second.
Any discussion? No. Okay, please state your name and your vote.
Adam, I.
Caitlin, I.
Bart, aye.
David, I.
Jay, aye. We will see you presumably in 2 weeks for the special meeting.
Thanks.